Hey everybody, welcome back to the Queens Lair. I am your host, Kellie Miles. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about how to deal with grief and how to deal with the loss of, and it can be the loss of anything, the loss of a relationship, the loss of a loved one, the loss of significant finances. It can be the loss of anything, and the grief that you feel is very hard to deal with sometimes. So we have these wonderful queens here with us today who are going to help us in that discussion and talk a little bit more about grief and what their story is. So we're first going to go over here to Dr. Kia. So Dr. Kia, tell us who you are and a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm Dr. Kia Everett. I am your mental health medic. I specialize in mental health. I've been in the field of mental health for over 20 years, and I am the owner of the first mental health urgent care center for the region, and I love doing what I do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Kia. We're going to come over to you, Miss Debbie. Tell us who you are and a little bit about you.
Okay, thank you, Kellie, for inviting me to be on your show. So my name is Debra Mcmillan. I'm a retired social worker, and I'm the servant leader of the Grief Support Ministry at the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church here in Philadelphia.
Nice. Amen. Well, thank you. And let's go to you, Miss Eileen. Tell us who you are and a little bit about you.
Hi, Kellie. I'm Eileen Solomon. I'm an author, coach, speaker, and trainer. I'm also the founder of Empowered to Succeed. And what we do is we help people elevate to the next level by offering tools and concepts that'll help them move forward with courage, clarity, and confidence.
Yes, amen. So that's great. So thank you, ladies, for joining us. I'm so excited. So tell me a little bit about your stories, and we'll start with you since we ended with you, Miss Eileen. Tell me a little bit about your story about loss. Just give us maybe about a minute or two of your story. What did you deal with?
Well, I dealt with loss of a relationship. My marriage ended suddenly, and so suddenly became a single mother with 5 children, the youngest being 2 and the oldest being 11. And just going through that, the whole breakdown, dealing with my mental health, and bouncing back from that, and discovering who I am, and where did I lose myself in my marriage, where I lost me. So I had to rediscover myself and move on, and the big thing, forgive.
Yeah, and that's hard, especially when you're talking about the loss of a relationship with someone you thought that you were going to spend the rest of your life with, and for whatever reason, that's gone. How do you forgive, especially if that person hurt you? Or how do you forgive people who do hurt you? So thank you for sharing. Miss Debbie, tell us a little bit about your experience that you dealt with grief.
Well, I think from a child, my first introduction to grief, and I didn't know then it was going to lead me into grief ministry, but it surely has, was when my father died suddenly when I was 13. So in the morning, I had a father. He went to work. When I came home from school, he was gone.
Yeah.
And that was just very devastating. And back there were no services for my mother. There were no services for children. But still, that trauma, that early trauma, just really transformed me, and it transformed my life. And then later on, I like to say that within a 2-year period, I probably lost everybody who was significant in me. 2-3 months after we got married, my uncle who gave me away died. We got married in September. Before Christmas, he was gone. My best friend, my little sister. It was just a string of losses. Before I could recover from one, there was another. But what the Lord really showed me and then began to give me a burden was for other people, especially after my mother died. Every time somebody died, somebody's mother died, I wanted to do something for them. So God put that burden on me and a passion for those who were going through the same experiences that I was and or had. And thank God at my church there was a grief ministry, and it was just a natural fit for me.
Yeah, and that's great, because when you have that support, when you feel like you have that support, it kind of helps. With you dealing with that grief.
Exactly.
Because a lot of times people feel like they're going through it by themselves. They feel like right now in this isolated moment, this is what I'm going through. Nobody else is understanding it. Nobody else is dealing with it. Unfortunately, they don't realize that there is help. There is support. There is somewhere where you can go to get the help you need. Dr. Kia, tell us a little bit about your story.
So my story basically started about 5 years ago. I actually was working full-time as a behavior specialist, and I worked, had a normal day. On New Year's Eve, came home from service, and on January 1st of 2015, had a heart attack coming home from service, and that just began to spiral. And so as a result of that one heart attack, found out that I had coronary artery disease. And once we found that out, a whole list of other health issues began, and as a result couldn't work anymore. And my family lost a major income because I had, not only was I income in my family, but I had the bulk of the income. I was making 6 figures by myself. And so it just really put my family in a major situation. And so as a result of that, you know, my oldest daughter was just starting high school. My youngest, the twins, were just starting middle school. And so it was really a major process for my family. A lot of trauma because everybody was home when it happened, and just learning how to emotionally deal with the health issues, the financial issues, and even to this day, you know, we still, just this past holiday break, was talking about just the trauma that the family has gone through. And what we found out is the church really, because as a pastor, even my church went through a lot of trauma. The church just really didn't know how to help us process through that, through all of that trauma. So it really was a major loss.
And it's pretty interesting because you touched on something, but each of you ladies have a different level or different piece of grief, whether it's a loss of a relationship, loss of health, or loss of loved one. And so each of you guys may have gone through different types of emotional feelings. And that's what I wanted to touch on with you, is you said the various emotions that you've gone through. Explain what you feel, like when you lose that thing and you're dealing with that grief. What does that look like for you in that moment? What is it that you feel when you lose a loved one? What do you feel when you lose your loved one?
Well, 2 primary feelings come to mind. One is just a shock of how could this be happening to me? And when that sets in, then the anger, why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
Why, God? I'm living the best I know how. I'm praying. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Yet you still took my child. Yet you took my dad. We prayed. We asked you, to keep them here. And, and those initial feelings, lots of times, that's what we as Christians, we suppress. We don't think we can be angry with God. We don't think He can take. Exactly. We have to suppress all of that and act like, praise the Lord, oh, I'm fine. The joy of the Lord is mine. We have all these platitudes. Meanwhile, inside, we're just totally broke down.
Yep, absolutely. And that's real. And I think that's what people need to understand, is those emotions are real.
Yes.
And it's okay to go through
those
emotions.
Express. That's right.
It's okay. And it's so frustrating sometimes when you're dealing with those things. And it's like, oh, baby, just pray about it. And oh, it's going to be all right, or you'll get over it. It's not something you get over. It's something you have to ask God to help you through. And then once you get through, you have to go through those emotions and go through those things so you can get to the healing process. And that's the struggle when you're in that part. Tell me a little bit about how the different emotions you went through. What are those emotions?
Well, first it was shock.
Yeah.
Like, wow, he really left. And the day it happened, I was at school, and after work I worked full time, then I went to school, and I came home, and my mom was babysitting my children. She told me, well, he didn't come home. He didn't come pick up the kids. And I was shocked. And after the shock, it's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And so that. And then you have children, so now you have to be strong because the way you respond really connects to your kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if I break down, then I just had to be the strong one.
Yeah.
So like you were saying about church, you suppress.
Yeah.
And you say, okay, I have to be there and I have to smile and make sure the kids, okay, Daddy's going to be back.
Yeah.
Or he'll call in the morning and let them go to sleep, and then just try to make it seem as normal as possible. But then it took a big toll on my mental health.
Yes, absolutely. And that goes back to you, Dr. Kia, talking about that mental health. And a lot of people don't realize grief does affect your mental
Yes.
health. It's a stressor that weighs down on you, and it can eat you up on the inside if you don't let it out, if you don't talk about it, if you don't get the help. Tell us a little bit about those emotions and how that ties into the mental health part.
So for me, I felt a lot of guilt. I felt a lot of guilt because prior to getting sick, we were taking 3 and 4 vacations a year. I just was one of those parents that really showered my children. And I felt a lot of guilt because life as we knew it was just no more. And I got a lot of, you be thankful God spared your life. You should be happy. And I was all of that. I got a lot of words thrown at me. But I'm a bishop. I know the word. I have been giving people the word I grew up in church. And so then I became angry because I felt like, are we so heavenly bound that nobody can understand what I'm feeling right now?
Yeah.
And so what I realized is that it wasn't that people were really trying to be insensitive. We just didn't know.
Yeah.
That, people just, they just really didn't understand how to tap in to the real emotions that we were feeling. When I was laying on that table, I didn't know that I was going to wake up. When I was literally in the throes of having a heart attack, I didn't know. And when I woke up and saw the time on the clock, I was really surprised that I woke up.
Yeah.
And so to really explain that, when I share that, people are like, wow, that's amazing. And for my husband to sit there and watch that and my children to sit there and watch that was trauma in itself. But, everybody's saying just be glad, your children have their mom and you have time to spend with your children. But what are we supposed to do with that? And so that has been the catalyst for me trying to bridge the gap because, okay, we can sit in church and we can praise God for life, but what are we supposed to do with that trauma? What are we supposed to do every time we turn on a show and we see somebody laying on a gurney and my children see somebody's mom laying on a gurney
And they connect
the dots.
Yeah.
And we look, right now to this day, my son can't hear, I believe it's the song Grateful by Hezekiah Walker, because that is the song that was sung the night in church when I sung in the choir before the heart attack. And he's like, I don't like that song. And
Right.
it took years for us to connect
Because he associated that song with that
Exactly.
traumatic experience.
Exactly.
And see, that's the same thing, and it's a little off topic, but even when you're eating food, you associate what your experience is of good taste to what
Exactly.
that item is. So if you're eating an item that's unhealthy because that's what you associate good taste with, you're going to continue to do that until you reprogram your mind to think on something else. But it's a mental thing, and it all ties into our minds and how we associate that experience. And so my question is, why do we as Christians, or just Christians in general, feel like you have to suppress, like you said? Why do you feel like you have to suppress those emotions? Why can't we allow us to go into church and fall down and break out on the floor and snot and cry and just let your hair loose? Why do we feel like we have to go into the church and sit like everything is good? Because people need to see that we're not, so that they can see the salvation of the Lord. They can't see it, which is why the world thinks, oh, you got to be put together before you go to church, before I give my life to Christ. Why do we do that?
Well, one is because we were taught that, especially in our culture, as an African American culture, we were taught what goes on at home stays at home.
That's true.
The other thing is when we look at, when we talk about church, you know, we have, you know, take your burdens to the Lord and leave them there.
Right.
But now, more so in this modern day, we're learning that, you know, that's what keeps us broken. That's what keeps us sick.
Yeah.
And there's so much more going on. You know, I can read the Bible and I can look at the words in the Bible, but how does that apply to my life? Is there someone else? I shouldn't say someone else. Is there some way that you can help me bring those words off that page and make it applicable to my life?
Engage with the word. And I think
Absolutely.
it all comes into having a relationship. Because a lot of times we go to church for the religious aspect of it, but there's a difference between the religious part and having a relationship. So what do you think as far as, you know, when we were talking about the whole, why do we hold on to that? Why do we have to go to church and we have to hold on that facade like it's good?
Well, fortunately for me, that happened before I was saved.
Okay.
And you know, it was, you know, like I was saying, I had the mental break. And it was, I met God because I said, you know, I had lost everything, and I moved in with my brother, and me and the 5 kids were like living in his living room. And he said, just go to church with me. And I went to church, and you know, I seen everybody, you know, doing what we do. And I was like, you know, and I said a prayer because, you know, I was really suicidal at that time. So I said a prayer and I said, God, if you are real, like they say you're real, then I need you now.
Okay.
And then, and I said it in the back pew. And as I looked up, there was an usher coming towards me. And she said, the pastor sent me here. He wants to pray for you. I was like, okay, that was real fast, God.
Yeah.
But it was amazing because I went down and I said it. I said the prayer, but instantly my mind was free.
Yeah. Praise God.
And then I said, wow.
Yes.
You loved me this whole time, and I never knew it. And life became, you know, you ever see The Wiz when the Wicked Witch, she dies?
Yeah.
And then the brand new day come and the people start peeling off their clothes, the dancers, and they start singing, Can't You Feel a Brand New Day?
Yeah.
That was that day for me.
So listen,
great.
we're getting ready to take a quick break. Thank you for all of you guys' comments. When we come back, we want to start to talk a little bit about that part that you just talked about, the peeling off and engaging and allowing him to heal you. So real quick, we'll be right back after this break.
You are watching the Queens Lair Christian Talk Show, a branch of Virtuous Woman Queens Lair. Everyone has a story. God uses our past experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to serve as healing, encouragement, and empowerment for others when we embrace lessons learned and are willing to share. To be a guest or a featured artist on our show, and to learn more about our Christian Women's Club, visit our website at www.vwqueenslair.org. Send an email to info@vwqueenslair.org, or you can call us at area code 610-933-0386. Now, back to our show.
Now, so let's see. The last thing that we talked about before we went on the break was talking about allowing God to heal you, allowing that facade to come off, taking off the mask. And the one thing is, unfortunately, that we do as humans, we wait until we have that devastating moment before we decide, oh my God, okay, Lord, what is going on? Please help me. And what he wants us to do is to get to that place before we have that, so that we'll have him when moments like that come up in life. So my thing is, we know that if we give our life to Christ, that doesn't mean that we're not going to have issues.
Right.
Life is still going to happen. Devastation, unfortunately, is going to happen. Humankind have inordinate desires, and they give into those inordinate desires, and God gives us free will. So that free will, unfortunately, means that they can do make their choices that sometimes affect other people. So when we're dealing with that, we need to recognize that, and we as Christians need to think about, how do you see the signs? And Miss Debbie, can you tell us, how do you see the signs? What to look for when someone is grieving and you can tell that, you can see them and you know something is wrong, you know something is off. How do you identify the behaviors when someone is grieving?
Well, sometimes you can't tell, because I think in church, because of the facade, we come very well packaged and we present this really just strong, and we have this image of, if you're in church, you're strong, your faith is supposed to be enough to take you through. The job tells you at 3 days of funeral leave, then you're supposed to be okay. So we have this image that you're supposed to put yourself back together like it's magic.
Rush.
But some of the signs that we get concerned about people is if you've lost a loved one and you're not able to sleep after a prolonged time, you're losing weight, you're having a lot of anxiety attacks, you're really not able to function even on your job, and your life has really fallen apart. Other areas of your life, you can't keep them together. Then we know that you're really having what's called complicated grief, and you really need some help. And that help can come individually, that help can come from a grief support group, or that help can come from calling your HMO on your job and, and getting some counseling like, the Sister Kia is talking about. So then we start to worry about you, because when you lose someone, we call it the year of first. Everything is changed in your life. All the holidays are going to be different. The birthdays are different. Everybody's triggers are different. For one woman, just the smell of her husband's cologne was just set her back to having a funeral and set her into a tizzy. So she had to get rid of his clothes right away. For one person, they found comfort in going to the cemetery. For another, there are different things. It could be a song, it's a smell, anything could give you a memory and take you back to that first day, because going through grief is not a lateral step-by-step process. It's a lot of up and downs, hills and valleys, a good day, then a bad day, a succession of good days, and then a bad day.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but you said complicated. So is there different stages when it comes to grief? Is there different stages?
There are. We talked about the anger, we talked about the shock, but then it's just trying to figure your way out. It's called bargaining. How can you really figure out what you're going to do, what's going to be different? And you're working your way to what we call a new normal. And then to a celebration of your loved one. Instead of looking at it from the depressive standpoint, look at what that life represents and what can you take from what you've experienced to propel you on. I always tell people it's a crossroads. You can either turn towards God or you can turn away from Him. And so, thank God for most of us, hopefully, and for us as believers, we'll turn towards Him God, and not turn away from Him at that moment.
That's the key, is turning towards Him. It's unfortunate, though, because a lot of people feel like God did this to them.
Yes.
So it's harder for them to go towards God because they feel like that. But what are your thoughts on, I heard you chime in a little bit on the stages of grief.
So grief definitely goes in stages. And I do agree that, your first year is your hardest year, and especially when you're coming up on the anniversary of whatever it is that you lost. You start to have anxiety, you start to, go through some emotional turmoil. For me, even now, the month of December, I have to take it down real slow, because my family goes like, Mom, calm down, like it's something that I did, which it wasn't anything I did, but it's, the month of December, and even though I know I'm okay, I think I owe that to my family, because they're like, Mom, you're doing too much, calm down, sit down, chill. So for the month of December, especially right around the holidays, I take it easy, I take it slow, because they do get anxious, especially around the holidays.
So that's something important that we gotta please pay attention to, those who you are around, your family, your friends, and identify when there is a loss and when you see some of those signs that were mentioned here. And before we get ready to go to our featured artist for today, I'm going to ask if each of you can just give like 1 or 2 words or tell them where they can go to get the help that they need that's free, somewhere where they can go to get some kind of help and get some kind of counseling when they're dealing with this kind of grief.
Well, of course, we have a grief support group at the Enon Tabernacle Baptist Church. Can I give the phone number there?
Sure.
215-276-7200. We meet twice a month, and we also, it's free group and free individual counseling. But there are lots of churches that do offer grief support groups throughout the city. And I'm glad to say, and I thank God, that more churches now are seeing the need to really provide
Yes.
this service to the people. And it's not just for people within the church, but anyone can come.
So you ladies have anyone that you would like to share for grief, any information for where they can get help from?
Okay, so what I do is I give help rebuilding. You know, when I started reading and started studying, so I do workshops, Empowered to Succeed, for people that, you know, all of a sudden they experience a loss of a relationship and they want to reclaim their life.
Do you have a number or email address where they can maybe reach out to you?
Yeah, usually I do it Facebook,
Okay.
Empowered to Succeed,
Empowered
and then I
to
do
Succeed?
yes.
Okay. And what do you have, Dr. Kia? Did you have anything you wanted to offer for help?
So, not as free, but what I would recommend for free help would be, again, reaching out to the churches. A lot of the
Yeah.
community centers
Okay.
offer free support groups. The support groups are really good in terms of grief.
Well, thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate all of you coming on today, joining us to discuss your relationship with grief and how the ideas that you have offered and shared to help other people out there who are also dealing with grief. So we are now getting ready to go to our featured artist of the day, Niditra Young, and please give her a hand clap. And remember, check out your local churches for the support you need.
Let praises rise from the inside, from the inside of me. May you delight from the inside, from the inside of me. Come fill my life from the inside, from the inside of me. Set me on fire from the inside, from the inside of me. 'Cause